You know, as good as that might have sounded, I don't think I was ever in a position medically where I was allowed to. Um, I needed to stay in Cleveland, around the Cleveland Clinic, just for everything that happened and for follow-up appointments and things like that. And it kind of coincided, you know, maybe a few days after the season to go that I come home. That was just kind of.
Tito, how are you feeling in general right now?
Well, I mean, I need to get a lot stronger. You know, I had a pretty challenging year up to this point. Um, you know, I've no going. You know, I'm going to have to put some effort into getting stronger. I was, you know, I had a, you know, I was uh, had a lot of challenging things happen this year that kind of knocked me back. Which, you know, if I'm appropriately, I'm going to need to get stronger, and I know that. So that's one of my.
Can you give us an idea of what you went through, or you know, any details you can give us?
Yeah, and I know Chris tried to keep you guys somewhat up to date, but it's kind of hard to give all the details just because of, you know, HIPAA and all that stuff. You know, you guys knew that I was fighting some of the GI stuff, and probably will for some time. You know, they said it took me a year to get this screwed up. It's not going to just get fixed overnight. Um, in the meantime, you know, it was kind of weird. I thought I had re-injured my hernia and didn't, other than being uncomfortable. I wasn't all that, you know, worried about it. It was kind of irritating me. And I went to see the doctor, and it wasn't a hernia, it was a blood clot. So it started to make sense. You know, that last day in Detroit, I couldn't get my shoe on, and I was fidgety, and everybody was noticing. Even while we were winning the game, Barney said I was dropping F-bombs all over the place, and, you know, it was just really uncomfortable. So when they did the surgery to repair the blood clots, kind of like about 18 years ago, I re-clotted, I guess, 3 different times. So in the span of 4 or 5 days, I had to have 3 surgeries and was actually in the ICU for about 4 days. So it was kind of a rough time.
Terry, what was it like just to be away from the game? This is you grew up in the game. You know, you're a kid, your dad was a player. To be away from it, and as much as modern technology tries to connect us to each other, you're still away from the game. What was that like?
No, I mean, for a couple of weeks there, I was not just away from the game, I was away from everything. You know, I was just trying to, you know, I was getting a little hairy there. And then once I got to the point where, I mean, I even came to a few games, but I was trying to be respectful to Sandy and the staff. I think, you know, managing's hard. Being an interim manager is harder. You know, you're taking what somebody else has tried to put their stamp on, and you're trying to do it. And I wanted to make sure I gave Sandy room to be the good baseball person he is. And that was hard for me to stay away, but I thought it was.
You know, was there ever a time where you said, maybe this is it, I've got to, you know, retire and maybe try to do another, go to the front office or something like that?
I don't know if the front office is probably. I don't know if that's ever going to be I think you got to have a little more than a second semester freshman education to help out there. But to your point, you know, some days when I was extremely frustrated, you know, the thought crossed my mind when it was hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I tried not to think like that. You know, Chris and Cherney were incredible. The night that we clinched, I was back at the hotel. They actually came over with a hat and a shirt, and we celebrated for about 5 minutes, and that was really meaningful to me.
Hey, Tito, have the doctors given you their blessing to come back? Do they want to just see you get stronger and then check back in over the next couple of months?
The plan is I still need to get my hip done at some point. That's a pretty big surgery, and I need to be able to do it without risk. So around the 1st of January, we're going to revisit that and see if that's something I should do or stay away from. I'm not in any hurry I'd love to have my hip feel better, because anybody that's have hip problems know that it bothers your back and it kind of irritates everything. I'd love for my quality of life to be a little bit better. But I also don't feel like going through the blood clots again. Limping's better than being horizontal. So I'm going to take about, the next 7 weeks. I've actually hired a guy that I've gone to therapy before here on my last hip, and he's going to work with me on getting stronger and trying to put myself in a position where I can give myself the best chance to hold up for a long season.
How difficult, obviously health-wise is difficult, but what's it like for you to sit and watch your team and you're not able to, press the buttons and talk? Like we see you up sitting during the games, and how tough is that? And did you learn anything about your team or how it was constructed?
What was really hard for me, Dre, was when I was home and I didn't come to the game, I'd be watching on TV, and you'd see an at-bat coming or something, like the Hosey one comes to mind. He had that great at-bat, and I hear the fireworks because I'm 2 blocks away before I see the home run on TV. And it just, as happy as I was, it also brought home the fact that I was 2 blocks away, but probably could have been 2,000 miles away for all I was helping. Kind of at times I felt like that guy in Hoosiers, the jumping up on the bed yelling, and it was hard not to get caught up in some of those games. I tried to not make myself, as much as, everybody cares about themselves, but I tried so much to think about Sandy and the coaches and try to feel what they were probably going through and how I could best help that. And the best way I knew to support them was just to support them, not try to stick my nose in it. That didn't. I don't think that was going to help anybody.
Were you able to see any of the players when you came to the park and at least say hi and talk about stuff?
A little bit. Again, because of the uniqueness of this year, it's not like you can just walk in and give guys hugs and high fives and stuff. So we tried to time it where, like when I was coming over for therapy, I'd come right about when the game was going to start, just because they're trying to navigate keeping players out of the training room and things like that. But inevitably, I would at least get to see a few guys, which was try to sneak over a few minutes early just so I could say hi at least to the coaches.
Did not being in the dugout make you miss it even more than you thought you might have?
I think to be completely honest about that, I think you got to feel better physically. I certainly missed baseball. I felt terrible not pulling my end of the responsibility. I think if I'd have been healthy, I would have missed it a lot more. There was a while there where I was really having a tough time. So I was just trying to get better. And when you're that miserable, it's hard to imagine, being able to do something.
Tito, has this experience changed you? Have you grown to appreciate things a little bit more? It sounds like that was a real tough little stretch you had.
I've been through this actually before, Tom, and I'd like to think that I appreciated what I had before. I don't think I need to get sick to know that I'm a lucky person and, value the relationships I have and things like that. I understand. I love where I'm at. Everybody that's been around me knows that. I love the people I work with and work for, and that doesn't change. It just probably continues to grow stronger. But, I want to be able to hold up my end of the bargain. When you're the manager, there's a lot of people that depend on you. And I felt really guilty because I wasn't there. And that was tough. That was tough on me mentally as well as, when you're going through physical stuff.
Tito, was there any thought from your doctors or anything like that saying that, look, with all the physical stuff you have, and as you just, this question was spurred by what you just said about feeling guilty, the stress that comes with the job, that's like, this is not exactly what we would prescribe for a guy coming off of all these different procedures and so on.
No, they actually were okay. I talked to them about that a lot. They were actually okay with me even trying to come back this year. But what ended up happening was we were getting towards the end of the year, and I had to have another GI procedure. This was after all that, with about a week to go in the season. And I remember telling Chris and Cherney, I just didn't think it was right to come in the last 3 days of the season and go, hey, I'm back.
Yeah.
You missed the grind of the whole season and upset the whole apple cart of moving Sarby back to third and Sandy back to first. I just didn't think that was right. And in the end, I wasn't up for it physically anyway. But that was kind of my feeling anyway. I just didn't think it was the right time. You'd always like to think you can make a difference. But I thought inserting myself ahead of everybody else was probably wrong.
But in terms of long-range stuff, they don't think there's in other words, the prerequisites of the job doesn't impact you physically?
No, I mean, there's things I need to keep an eye on. When we fly, I need to get up every hour. These are things I've always done anyway. The last couple of years, the guys that travel with us know I go in the back and stretch out. I'm actually pretty good about that. There's nothing I'm going to deal with that I haven't already. I mean, like I said, this was something that happened 18 years ago. I spent a week in the hospital instead of 7, which I was happy about.
Thanks.
Is it too soon to look ahead at what you guys may look like or may be, or are you not ready to do that just yet?
I've talked to Chris and Cherney a little bit before I left to come home, and then the last couple of days. Dre, I don't think anybody in baseball knows what they're going to look like next year. We're in uncharted waters. And I know Chris talked to you guys, I think it was yesterday. We're not the only team that's going to feel the effects of what's gone on this year. And it's going to be an interesting offseason, not just for us, but for baseball in general. The one thing I would add to that, Dre, regardless of what happens or, what challenges are thrown your way, we're never going to abandon our will to want to win. That'll never change, regardless of how young or how old or whatever, that will never change.
I was going to say, how nice is it to know that you have all this young pitching? You can build where there's a lot of teams that don't have that foundation. What does that mean to you?
I actually mentioned that to Chris one day, and I forget the team I was talking about, and I probably wouldn't mention it anyway. But I mean, they were talking about being competitive next year, and I was looking at their starting 5, and they only had like 2. And I remember thinking, boy, good luck. When you have young, good pitching, that's the best place to start from. I mean, I know we've had our share of challenges, getting enough production out of our outfield, and we certainly want to improve there. But when you don't pitch, everything else is really hard to be successful at.
You mentioned the outfield. We went back and forth on 60 games and how to evaluate. Is it fair to say that probably needed more games, or because I know Sandy even complained, he said it was, trying to get guys hot in 2 or 3 days was very difficult to do. Do you think the 60 games played into that, or is there something different?
Yeah, I do. And we had just about every outfielder at the beginning struggled. And in a normal season, maybe you can allow guys a chance to settle in. In a 60-game season, I don't know that you had the opportunity to do that as much. And, for a while there, and I told Chris, I said, we might not be helping these guys right now. We're playing them, maybe we're trying to play the right guy at a certain night, and we're playing 5 or 6 guys, and they were all struggling. The hard part was when there's not a track record, and other than Oscar, and then Naquin got hurt, there really wasn't a ton of a track record. It makes it hard to stick with somebody when the track record isn't there and you're trying to win. But it was a frustrating kind of a merry-go-round, and hopefully, we've talked about that. So going into next year, that's certainly something we'd like to try to have some more consistency with.
Tito, go on, Manny.
Okay. Tito, you obviously saw the start Bieber got off to in person, but how impressive was it for you just to continue watch him do that for the rest of the season, even if it was from home on television?
He just continues to get better, and he went from young and pretty good to really good to dominating in a really short amount of time. And the exciting part is that he's never going to be satisfied with where he is, and he's really a humble kid and conscientious. He's a good teammate. He's the type of guy you can build your staff around, and we're really excited about that.
Tito, have you talked to Millsy and Van Burk-Leo? Do you think they'll be back next year?
As far as Vambo goes, this is going to be, again, there's so many things that are fluid. We don't even know what type of parameters we'll be working with next year. So we're going to have to keep that in mind as we move forward. As far as Millsy goes, he's actually going to come out here to see me next week, and he's going to stay with me for a couple of days, and we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. And he knows he has an open seat waiting for him if he wants to do that. But I think he wants to come talk to me for a couple of days, and that'll be good. We can sit and relax and not rush through everything, and I can listen to what's on his mind and how he's feeling. And so we'll do that next week.
Mandy brought up Bieber's year. I don't think we've been able to ask you, just what were your thoughts on the Yankees series and what happened in those 2 nights?
They were kind of streaky as far as, their offense, and they live by the home run so much. And, 4 pitches in, we're down 2-0, and it was like he never was able to get his toehold, and, they just, whatever happened, they woke up, and they've continued it into the second round. Some of those swings that Stanton took last night, my goodness, that was one of the most majestic home runs I think I've ever seen. And the other one looked like he hit a 2-iron the wrong direction, would have been out of bounds. But that's unbelievable to me.
Tito, I heard what you said about the young pitching and the ability to, that's a good place to start. But, just listening to Chris and about the economic state of not only the Indians, but probably a lot of those mineral market teams, it's pretty bleak. I guess what I was wondering is, as a veteran manager who's been through it, how do you feel about that challenge? Because you're going to be losing probably some of your key guys.
Well, we're like I was telling, I forget who asked me, but our goal or our challenge will never change, regardless of what we have to do organizationally. And I think Chris and Cherney have kind of earned the right for me to have confidence in what they're doing. They've had to navigate this landscape for a while, and we haven't reached the ultimate goal, but we've given ourselves a chance to do that pretty much year in and year out. And sometimes, the challenges are tough sometimes, but that doesn't mean you back away or you give up or you shake your head. That's why I feel the way I do about things. You know, I enjoy going through challenges with people I respect and care about. And I guess I figure we'll figure it out together. I just always feel that way.
Hey, Tito, we know you have a good, close relationship with Carlos Santana through the years. Just to see him go through the season that he had, how difficult was that? And, what are your hopes for him, moving forward?
Yeah, and I know there's some business that needs to be taken care of as far as he goes. Same with hand and, some things like that. But it will never take away whether he hit 199 or he hit 299. That doesn't change how I or we feel about him. I mean, he's one of the funnest kids, and his story is pretty well documented. How he's grown and matured and turned into a guy that we just love. That doesn't change with a guy's batting average. He's still the same kid, and shoot, I would text him probably as much or more than anybody on our team while I was gone.
What do you think? What do you think of the job Sandy did? As stepping in for you.
I thought he was tremendous. I thought, like I said, being a manager I think is difficult. Being a guy that's taken over somebody I think is harder because you're inheriting, his bunt plays and how he wants to do things. And the biggest thing I told him was, don't look over your shoulder. Don't try to do what you think I would do. That's hard. That makes it too hard. I said, you've been in this game a long time. You have great baseball instincts. Just do what you think is right. And, he has Carl sitting there next to him as a pitching coach, and Sarby was next to him on the bench. He was in good shape. He had good help, and he's got a really good baseball. His wealth of knowledge is not just as a first base coach helping the runners or helping our catchers. He understands the game extremely well.
Come back to Cleveland at all for checkups, or can you do that in Tucson? Is that kind of thing?
I had my big checkup a couple days before I came home. They needed to kind of get together and figure out what blood thinners I would be on and things like that. Because one of the blood thinners I had leaving the hospital was part of the problem. I clotted with that back in 2002, and I did again this time. So they wanted to put their heads together and come up with something that made sense, and they did. I can't tell you. I mean, the Cleveland Clinic, I know they have an unbelievable reputation, but well, I'll tell you what, man, they went above and beyond with me, and I'm sure I'm not the only person that says that. There's some incredible people, and I felt very fortunate that if I was going to be in that kind of banged up, that at least I did it at the clinic.
Terry, you mentioned that story of Mike and Chris showing up with the hat when you guys had clinched. It's easy when you're in the dugout and winning a lot of games, but how much in these weird times with the obstacles you went through and the team went through, did this year sort of reinforce just how much you've enjoyed, and love working with these guys?
Well, I think it always gets reinforced. I don't need it to be. I mean, because I know how I feel. I also see during difficult times how the guys react. I mean, shoot, Chris was over at the hospital along with my family. Even if I can only partially remember it, he cares genuinely about you as a person. And I know I've told people in the past, he's made me, and Cherney I include in this, they've made me a better manager, and they've also made me a better person. And I appreciate that. And, again, as you get older, doesn't mean you want to quit trying to get better. Yeah, he always does, though. He always does. I know I think he knew I was hurting, when things got explained to me, and I realized I had the blood clots, it made a lot more sense because I couldn't understand why I felt so bad. and I know myself, I kid with you guys a lot. On good days, I'm one step above comatose, but I was feeling pretty lousy, and I just couldn't figure out why. And it made a heck of a lot more sense when things kind of were explained to me. And I don't want to go through that anymore, though. I don't know why it happened, but I certainly don't want to go through it again.
When you decided to try to come back for that week in August, were you feeling like the slightest bit better whenever you made that decision, or were you just trying to maybe get back into your routine?
I really wasn't feeling very good, Mandy, but that was right when the Clevenger Please Act stuff was going on, and I just felt like I really needed to be there. And the plan wasn't just to come back for a few games, but again, that last day in Detroit, I was having like I said, I couldn't get my right shoe on. My right leg was so swollen, I wasn't getting any circulation, and I couldn't figure out why. And I couldn't imagine what a hernia would do. I don't know. I just, like I said, it made sense afterwards. But no, I just felt like I really needed to be there to try to help through that period.
I know you struggled a little bit during spring training and missed some games there. Did you ever feel better during the shutdown before summer camp came and kind of thought you'd be okay for the season?
I had so many procedures, Rosie, from the end of our first spring training when I came back to Cleveland. I think we figured it out at the end. I'd been under anesthesia 9 or 10 times. So, I mean, even just that itself kind of beats you up a little bit. So, it took its toll. I actually, when we started our second spring training, there was a couple weeks there where I actually felt pretty good. I know part of it, I was excited to be back. The weather was nice, seeing the players. But I actually thought I felt pretty good. And then it kind of started to go the other way pretty quickly.
Tito, have you been able to get back to physical activity as far as like swimming or doing anything like that? And if not, have they given you a time frame on when you can start doing stuff like that again that you enjoy?
Yeah, they actually gave me the go-ahead. I've been swimming, and I've actually started to do some light, physical movement, trying to get back into trying to be able to get a little stronger. And it's going to take a while, but I've got a guy here that's really good and understands that I'm 61 and kind of beat up and not caring about, making my pecs look like I'm 20, but trying to have a quality of, where I can move around and not have my back hurt and my hip hurt. So like I said, I'll take the next 7 weeks and really try to make a change. I can move around in less pain.